These are some of the most shocking and fascinating stories about the Amazon that have been shared on the Joe Rogan podcast. We'll start with this story shared in episode 1240 of the Joe Rogan podcast, where Forrest Galanti, an explorer who's traveled to some of the most extreme places on Earth, admitted that nothing compares to the madness of the Amazon. And it's easy to see why. This jungle hides some of the most incredible and disturbing creatures out there. From insects that lay eggs under your skin to worms that grow inside the human body, there are tiny fish that can swim into you if you're not careful in the water. And don't even get started on the infamous bullet ants. Their stings are so intense, people say it feels like being shot, with pain that can last for hours. But that's not all. Leeches aren't just in the rivers, they actually drop from the trees. And in a place as humid as this, even the smallest cut can turn into a serious infection in no time. Get ready. What you're about to see is not for the faint of heart.
I mean, I guess that's like what it must be to just be in the Amazon itself as well, right?
For sure.
In the jungle, not just the rivers and the lakes or whatever's out there, but the actual jungle itself.
It was incredible. The jungle there. So we were in Colombian Amazon, and like, talk about untouched by people. There's been this kind of ongoing conflict in Colombia for many, many years. So we were the first Westerners to go there in over 60 years. So the village we flew into, they'd literally never seen white people before. And then we went 200 kilometers from that. So like middle of nowhere.
Did they want to touch you?
Yeah, hair. Because their hair was very dark and very different. And like, I'm not particularly fair, but just to touch like the hair and see the blue eyes and stuff, they were just loving it.
Friendly?
Super friendly. Like, the culture was very stoic. Like, there wasn't a lot of smiling or crying. You know, there wasn't like a lot of emotional exchange. But straight away they came and greeted us, like shook hands, said hello. It was really cool.
Wow, that's gotta be. Now, how do you set something like that up? Do you have like a liaison that like acts as a go-between between you and the tribes?
Yeah, so we did in this case have one guy who communicated. I speak Spanglish, I guess, and they all speak Spanish from back in the day. So we set it all up. It's part of the wildlife stuff that I do. We literally flew a DC-3, a World War II cargo plane, into this cocaine dealer's airstrip.
What?
And then that's how we got there. I mean, like, mind-blowing stuff.
Current cocaine dealer or former?
Former, yeah. Well,
who knows?
TBD.
It's still Colombia, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
So yeah, it was that one was really cool, really remote.
How crazy is it that they learned Spanish from people who came over on boats from Spain and it just stuck?
Isn't that nuts? And took over the whole
region.
Yeah, the whole world. And here's this tribe in the middle of the Amazon that has this language from another continent.
Well, and Brazil, right? From Portugal.
Right.
It's really incredible when you stop and think about it. I mean, it's incredible, but it's also part of it's a little sad. Like, wouldn't you have loved to have heard what their original language was?
Oh, absolutely.
Like what it sounded like?
Well, they did. So it's funny because when they didn't want us to understand what they were talking about, they would switch to their native Indian language. So they still had... They were bilingual, a community of 25 people that have never left, and they're bilingual.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Now, their native language is what? What is it?
It's an Amazonian Indian dialect. I honestly don't even... They might have said the name, but I don't recall.
What is the name of their tribe?
Also, I'm not even sure. They're so isolated, they're unaware of what country they live in. They don't even know that they're in Colombia.
Really?
Really. They're just like, to them, they're Amazonian. They're not Colombian, Ecuadorian, Brazilian. They're Amazonian.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So they just stay. Where they are, they stay.
And the village we were in is literally, I think it's over 200 kilometers from the next village of 15 or so people. And they don't have fuel. They don't have motors. They're just in this pocket and they just subsistence live.
And they're all barefoot, right?
Yeah.
Do they have those crazy splayed out feet?
Big feet, because they're not very big people. They're like small Indian people, but really big, kind of useful feet. And the way that they could run up and down trees and climb stuff, I mean, it was unbelievable. Like, so much more athletic than you could imagine.
Oh, I'd imagine, right? They've been doing that their whole life.
Their whole lives, yeah.
Now, when I say splayed out feet, what I'm talking about is that people that walk barefoot in the jungle for long periods of time, like their whole life, their toes spread out and their feet almost look like a hand.
Oh, no way. I did not pay enough attention. That might have been the case, but I didn't notice it.
Looking at their feet.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is kind of a weird thing to stare at dudes' feet.
Yeah, for sure.
But Steve Ranella, who's a good friend of mine, told me about that. He was in Guyana, and it's the same thing. And they actually got some pictures and videos of these people's feet, but look at these guys up there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't notice anything like that.
Yeah, this is the, that's, how do you say that? Horani?
Sounds right.
Horani, you think?
Horani.
Horani Indian splayed feet. So it's very strange. Like, it's kind of the opposite of what happens to women when they jam their feet into those little pointy shoes.
Right.
Where they get the toes kind of smush onto each other.
The ballet feet.
Yeah, it's horrible. Instead of that, they're all like crazy spread out. What in the fuck is going on there? The guy's
The
got
top
like
of his hands, I think.
wood. Yeah, the top is hands,
yeah.
but the bottom is like wood feet.
But
Like,
that's got to be like what our feet are supposed to be.
probably right.
Right?
Yeah, thick ass toes that actually have muscles in them that move.
That you can use like a tool, like your hand. Yeah.
So, and these guys just can climb up trees with them, so they grip the side of the tree with their feet like a hand.
Oh, I mean, I didn't notice, like I say, the feet just like that specifically, but the way they could, like, everything's covered in mud down there, right? It's all wet. It rains every day. And they could run up and down these tree trunks, like, to get up and down the village. And here's me and my crew with our awkward cameras and stuff, and we're slipping and sliding and falling over.
Yeah.
And, like, they're literally like, what's wrong with these people? Why can't they walk? We must have looked like infants to them.
Right, and you guys probably have like boots on and shit that
Of
get
course.
muddy and fucked up and.
Oh,
yeah.
totally. Yeah, we're wearing, muck boots, and my one buddy's got waders on, and, we think we're all hard and cool because we got all this gear, and they're just, like, running around in shorts barefoot.
It is so fascinating when you see people that don't have contact with the outside world. Like, I'm sure you're aware of that recent story. The missionary was killed by the people on North Sentinel Island.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is one of the weirdest places because they've branched off from Africa, 60,000 years ago or something like that.
Right.
When you're around these people, like, what do they do if they get injured?
So funny you asked that because we kind of had that same question, right? And they don't leave. They stay in the village. They have a shaman at the village who blessed us with a crazy green powder, and that's a whole nother story. But they have a shaman, and he is their doctor. However, he has no access to any Western medicine. So it's only his learned knowledge handed down through generations, plus jungle powders and whatnot. And that's it. So we spent today, because we had a medic with us, doing like kind of village help, if you will. Everybody had ringworm. Everybody had respiratory infections. There were a lot of lady problems in the village that our medic had to deal with. I mean, there was a lot of health issues, and you don't even realize it.
I'm gonna write something down before I forget. I'm sorry, it's totally unrelated. But
No, all good.
There's a doctor named Peter Hotez that's coming on the podcast, and I have to follow up on him. When you start talking about the people in the jungle, he's an actual a doctor who is he specializes in infectious diseases in jungle and tropical climates, and he's like, everyone's infected with something.
Everyone.
He'd
have a heyday down there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably been.
Yeah.
But so when these people have ringworm and all these different infections, do they treat it? Do they have like some naturopathic cure or some shit?
I think it's kind of a 50-50. Like, a lot of it they don't treat because it's just part of everyday life. Like, when I say everybody had ringworm, I meant everybody had it. So I don't think there was any kind of treatment or cure. It was just kind of part of them.
Huh.
But other things, the witch doctor or the shaman was trying to treat. And then we kind of went in and we had like medication for ringworm, so we dewormed everybody, and with the shaman's blessing, and he was like super excited to have Western medicine in the village. And
Would you use like Lamisil or something like that?
I couldn't tell you. I think it wasn't topical. I think it was like a Vermox, like a pill that you take that kills the worms.
And that's just the beginning. What many people don't realize is that the real danger in the Amazon doesn't always come from what you can see, but from what you can't. Beneath the surface, hidden in thick vegetation and dark mud, are creatures that seem straight out of a nightmare. Every step in this jungle can be a gamble. For explorers like Galante, the risk is part of the journey, and so is the wonder.
The weird thing about that is like, don't you leave and then they're gonna get it again, right?
I mean, there's only so much you can do, right? Yeah, totally. That we were having the same dilemma, and it was like, do we interfere because we're from the outside world? Do we help? And we talked to the shaman through our translator, and he said, please help, please help. So we gave, including him, everybody this dewormer, but, they'll just come back.
Yeah, and also they probably don't understand the consequences of taking some antibiotic that's going to do some weird shit to your whole biome, right?
Right. And
Kills
these are all
the good stuff too.
It's such a moral dilemma. You're there and you're like, I want to help. Do I? Is it helpful? Is it hindering?
Yeah.
Our medic was like, it's undeniably going to help. You know, they need this. And so we went for it. And it was, you know, it seemed to help. Everybody felt fine, but we were only there a couple more days before we left. So who knows?
Wow. Now, when you're talking about ringworm, like, are these guys covered in it? They have big patches of it? Like, what's it like?
Feet and legs had big patches of it. Yeah.
And if you don't know, that's the same shit that's athlete's foot.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, ringworm and athlete's foot are the same kind of funk.
Oh,
Yeah.
huh.
That's why people tell you to pee on your feet.
Oh, I thought that was
if
just
you
for
have
fun.
It could be for fun. Depends on what you're into. But I think that's the idea behind it, is that you're somehow or another you're killing the bad bacteria when you piss on your feet and you have athlete's foot. That might be horseshit. Maybe, yeah. With me, you always have to check. Yeah, definitely give that a little look-see. But it's a real common thing with jiu-jitsu.
Gotcha.
So guys,
just all the mats.
Yeah, it's real common. So just guys get it, and there's people really fuck up where they like put bleach on it and a bunch of different things to try to kill it, and it winds up getting worse, and also fucks up all the natural skin flora. Jock itch, athlete's foot, and ringworm are all types of fungal skin infections known collectively as tinea. They're caused by fungi called dermatrophytes that live on the skin, hair, and nails and thrive in warm, moist areas, the jungle.
Gross.
So it seems like they're just going to get it.
That's just what it sounds like. You know, but
What
still
do they
trying
do
to help.
for it? What do they do for it?
I didn't see them treating that at all. And when we pointed it out, they were like, yeah, we know about it. You know, they were more concerned with things that were like dire. Like there was an infant, maybe not infant, maybe 3 years old, and he was hacking up a lung. And he was asthmatic, according to our medic. So our medic gave them like an asthma medication. And he just said, you know, if he has an attack where he can't breathe, give him this. And like, you know, to be super real with you, when we walked away, our medic was like, I doubt he'll live to see adulthood.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And were you giving him inhalers? Did you give him...
I'm not sure, to be honest, what it was that he left with him.
And what about like injuries? What if they break a leg or something like that? What do they do?
I don't think anything. Yeah.
Was anybody... I mean, you got to think these people are climbing trees. They must
Constantly. Fall, get bitten by stuff. There's tons of venomous snakes out there. It's wet, it's muddy, it's slippery. They're building stuff out of very rudimentary tools. I mean, it's nuts. They have to get injured.
It's so interesting that we have this understanding of medicine and doctors and hospitals, but that's probably pretty fucking recent.
Oh, of course, yeah. I'll tell you a story, Joe. I was in Myanmar late last year, and we're down there filming this thing, and this kid, like 22-year-old crab fisherman, gets bitten by a crocodile. Oh. Croc grabs him by the arm, grabs him by the thigh, and death rolls. So it breaks the arm in like, I don't know, 15 places, compound fracture, the real deal. I can show you pictures of it. It'll blow your mind. And we hear about this, and we're minutes away. It's kind of one of the similar situations where we're the first Westerners to be there in a long time. We go bombing over at high speed, and we get there, and the mom is like off mourning the death of her child, but her child is sitting there still alive. Like they have written him off. And mom is literally mourning the death of her child, and he's lying there conscious, but like in total shock. Fortunately, just because of the situation, we had a speedboat, everything else. We bandaged him up, you know, tried to keep his arm stable and his leg stable, put him in our speedboat, and it was 6 hours by speedboat to a village that had to a hospital, really. And so he got there, and his life was saved. But we asked the people in the village, what were you going to do? And they're like, there's nothing we can do.
Wow.
So he was just going to bleed out or go septic, and that was the end of it.
Ooh, what a fucking rough way to go.
Right?
Ooh. How did he get away from the crocodile?
I don't know. I think he was just hitting it or hammering on it. He was crab fishing in the water, and it came up and grabbed him, rolled a few times, and at some point he escaped. How he even got back in the boat and made it back to the village, I have no idea, because his leg was shattered, his arm was shattered. It was brutal. And it was a canoe, you know. It wasn't like he had a little motor or a wheel to drive. He canoed back.
One of the most disturbing stories I ever read was these guys were kayaking in an African river, and the guy in front of them got grabbed by a crocodile, and that it went under, and it plunged like a bobber as the crocodile pulled him out of the bottom of the kayak.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck.
That's awful.
Imagine being the guy behind him and watching that
just
shit.
Just watching, yeah, and knowing that you're pretty much helpless.
Did you see any jaguars or anything?
I've never seen a jaguar. I've seen a lot of lions. I'm from Africa. I don't know if you knew that, but so I've seen a lot of lions growing up. My family did safaris, and then I've seen mountain lions here in California, leopards, stuff like that. I've never seen a wild jaguar.
Really?
Yeah.
Even when you were in the Amazon?
I think they're really elusive. I know there's areas that are hot spots. All of the locals were very nervous and kind of knew about them. Like, I went out for bushwalks at night and stuff, and I'd just go me and one guy with a camera. And they were like, "Oh, be careful! Like peligroso, very dangerous. Don't do it." But
peligroso means very dangerous.
Peligroso, like danger, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so we just go, and I'm not trying to act like we were tougher than them or anything. We would love to have seen one, but they were very aware of them, so they were there. We just didn't happen to run into one.
Sort of like mountain lions.
Exactly.
Yeah, like they say that mountain lions are like if you live in a place that has them, Wyoming or Colorado or something like that, they know where you are.
Right.
But
right.
They might be around you all the time, and you might rarely see them. Like
exactly.
Maybe driving home, you see one skittering into the bush.
There was a nuts video, I think it was from the LA area. Did you ever see it where the security cams picked up this mountain lion that was walking through this like very residential neighborhood, and you'd see like people would walk by, and then 30 seconds later he'd like dip out of the shadows and then dip back in, and then the next set of people would walk by and nobody had any clue he was there.
Yeah, it's crazy that a giant predator can move around like that.
Right.
Yeah, so when you're there, like what would you have done if someone got bit by a venomous snake or a spider or something like that? Did you guys have any anti-venom? Were you prepared for something like that?
I mean, that's my department, right? Like as the wildlife guy, that's kind of my department is make sure nobody gets bitten, make sure nothing like that happens. And we handled very many venomous snakes and caught anacondas and all kinds of great stuff. We did have like my main camera guy, his name's Mitch. He got absolutely lit up by these wasps one night. And we all were. We got like 12, 14 stings each. But I looked back in the canoe at one point, and his eyes are just super swollen. He's bright red. He's sweating. I'm like, Mitch, you okay? He's like, His throat started to close up. He was having an allergic reaction. So we had to hit him with antihistamines. And I'm not actually sure if the medic administered the EpiPen or not. But he was like, we're in the middle of the jungle. We're 6 hours from a village that's then a full day's travel by a charter plane from a hospital. I mean, middle of fucking nowhere. And his throat's closing up. And that's why we take a medic with us. Thankfully, we had this emergency medic. He administered the antihistamines, and Mitch was okay. But these things do happen.
Do you ever, like, while you're on these crazy adventures, do you ever out there going, this is the last one?
Nah, never. No way.
Never?
No.
The Amazon rainforest has long been seen as a wild and untamed land ruled by nature. What many are now learning is that beneath its thick canopy lies the legacy of an advanced civilization. In this story, we explore one of the most important discoveries in recent years. Researchers are uncovering traces of lost cities, carefully designed road systems, and agricultural techniques that challenge everything we once believed. This new perspective reveals the Amazon not just as a vast jungle, but as the site of a rich and complex human history that is only now coming to light.
Some of the more fascinating pieces of evidence in South America have come out recently about these channels and pathways that they've found in the Amazon that could not have been created any other way but by humans creating irrigation, humans creating, like, it appears like grids, like a city grid.
Definitely. The Amazon is a colossal mystery, and it's one of the subjects that I explore in depth in America before. First of all, to give some basic figures, the Amazon basin is huge. The Amazon basin is 7 million square kilometers in area. And within it, 5.5 million square kilometers remains almost entirely unstudied by archaeologists. And that's the 5.5 million square kilometers that is still covered by dense rainforest. And to put that into perspective, 5.5 million square kilometers is the size of the entire Indian subcontinent. So it's like saying, we've done world archaeology, but we've just ignored India, We've done world archaeology, but we've just ignored the Amazon. It's the same argument. 5.5 million square kilometers. The view was, again, there was a dogma. There was a preconception. Human beings couldn't have flourished in the Amazon. It's not a resource-rich area. The soils are poor. It's a difficult area, challenging to get to, very far from the Bering Straits. So the view was that humans hadn't entered the Amazon until about 1,000 years ago. And then gradually, little by little, that view has begun to change. And it's begun to change because of the tragic clearances of the Amazon, because the Amazon rainforest is literally being cut down and turned into soybean farms and cattle ranches. And in that cutting down process has emerged things that shouldn't be there at all. For example, evidence that large cities flourished in the Amazon. Enormous cities, which were larger than there was a Spanish explorer who went down the Amazon River system in 1541 to 1542. He was the first European to cross the entire length of South America from west to east along the Amazon. He reported seeing incredible cities, advanced arts and crafts, millions of people, a thriving culture. And 100 years later, when other Europeans got into the Amazon, they couldn't find these cities. So they said, oh, Francisco Orellana, that was his name, made it all up. It was just a fantasy. And then in the last decade, as the clearances of the Amazon have proceeded, we've begun to see the traces of those cities. What happened was that the Spaniards brought smallpox into the Amazon. Oh. Smallpox devastated the local population because there was no immunity to it. There was a massive die-off. The cities were deserted. Within 50 years, they were completely overgrown by the jungle, and that's why they were not seen by the explorers who came in 100 years later. But now the jungle's being cleared, those cities are emerging, and we can say that a city like London, which had a population of roughly 50,000 in the 16th century, there were cities of that size all over the Amazon. Wow. Huge numbers of them. And a possible total population of the Amazon that exceeded 20 million people.
What?
Yes, 20 million. This is the latest evidence from the Amazon. And then you ask yourself, how did they do that? How did they feed 20 million people in the Amazon? Because it's a fact, rainforest soils are poor. It's one of the reasons these soybean farms are a really stupid idea, because once you clear the rainforest, the land is largely unfertile and you can't grow stuff on it for very long. So how did they feed all these people? The answer was they invented a soil. And that soil has a name. It's called terra preta. Archaeologists refer to it as Amazonian dark earths or Amazonian black earth. It's a man-made soil. It's thousands of years old. It's full of microbes that are not found in adjoining soil. It's based around biochar. And you can take a handful of 8,000-year-old terra preta and you can add it to barren soil, and that soil will instantly become fertile. It's highly sought after in the Amazon, and it explains how they fed these people. There was science in the Amazon.
How did they create this?
Well, this is something that's not understood. It's still not understood by soil experts to this day as to how that was done, but it's one of many intriguing pieces of evidence of much higher development in the Amazon that it has been given credit for, and of a kind of science in the Amazon.
Jamie's got an image of it up there. So this is it?
This is terra preta, yeah. Exactly,
wow.
Exactly.
And so was that done by burns? Did they use controlled burns?
They did. One way that it was achieved was to do wet burning. Of middens. They would be burned and smolder. They wouldn't burn fiercely, which just produces charcoal. They would burn and smolder, and that what is called biochar would result, and that's part of the fertility of the soil. But the mystery is the microbial content of this soil, which is completely different from the microbes in neighboring soils, and that remains unexplained.
So, what are the theories? Composting, some sort of advanced composting?
Yes, some sort of advanced composting. But again, what has not been explained is the microbial content of these soils. So there, first of all, is an issue of how two things: how large populations get fed in the Amazon, and evidence that there was a culture in the Amazon that was capable of manipulating the environment in such a way that it could support large populations with the invention of terra preta. Secondly, new evidence previously not recognized: the Amazon is basically a garden. The Amazon is a man-made rainforest. There are certain trees like Brazil nut trees or the ice cream bean tree, which are food crops, which are very, very valuable, and they dominate the tree regime in the Amazon. They're what's referred to as hyperdominant species. In other words, people living in the Amazon over thousands of years selected certain trees, which they then cultivated and grew. So the whole thing is not simply a wild, pristine rainforest. It's a very ancient man-made environment. And emerging from that man-made environment, as well as evidence of large cities, large populations, and this mysterious dark earth, are huge geometrical structures. And again, I go into this at length in America before because I love this mystery. We have in the UK structures that are called henges. I live in the city of Bath, and about 30 miles away there's a beautiful site called Avebury and another more famous site called Stonehenge. And what a henge is a ditch which has been dug deep, and then an embankment has been pushed up outside the ditch. When people first saw these structures, they wondered if they'd been built for defense. But then it became obvious they hadn't been built for defense, because if you want to create a moat, you put it outside your embankment, not inside your embankment. So a henge is an earthwork which consists of a deep moat with a large embankment outside it. And it can be circular, it can be square, and in the UK and other parts of Europe, it often contains stone circles, megalithic stone circles as well. But the henge itself is entirely an earthwork. What we find in the Amazon are thousands of henges that are now beginning to emerge from the cleared area of the jungle, and others that have been identified for the first time with LiDAR. LiDAR technology is being employed in the Amazon. It's non-destructive. You can see what's under the trees.
What is LiDAR?
Light imaging and detective radar. They bounce laser beams down into the jungle. There's a whole pattern of them. You need helicopters, and but it doesn't damage the rainforest. And you can strip away and see what's there. If this isn't too much of a diversion, let me give you the example of Guatemala. Guatemala is a small country. If I remember correctly, it's not much more than 100,000 square kilometers in size. It is filled with intriguing Mayan ruins. Everybody has heard of Tikal. What archaeologists didn't know was that literally within walking distance of Tikal, surrounding that whole area were more than 60,000 structures that they hadn't identified. And these have all been identified by LiDAR in a country that's just 100,000 kilometers in area. So you have to ask yourself, in that 5.5 million square kilometers of the Amazon, if LiDAR technology could be applied comprehensively, what would we find beneath there? And the evidence already is extremely tempting and extremely tantalizing. And I'm intrigued by these huge geometrical figures, which involve primarily circles and squares. And they are classic henges in the sense that they are deep ditches surrounded by huge embankments. They're extremely geometrical. For example, you can find an octagon surrounding a square. At a place called Jacosá in the Amazon, you can find a square perfectly enclosing a circle. Now that is an exercise called squaring the circle that our academics have given to the Greeks. They said the Greeks were the first people who performed that exercise. But now we find in dated sites in the Amazon that this was being done in the Amazon long before the Greeks.
What are the dates?
The earliest dates that have been found in these sites now are about 3,500 years old. About 3,500 years old. But the evidence is that the sites have been constantly remade. And what intrigues me is what remains in that 5.5 million square kilometers that has not been investigated yet. We are just, I think, looking at the edges of a mystery. The archaeologists involved, who are mainly from Finland and also from Brazil, feel the same. Their estimate is that there are thousands of these structures remaining in the jungle, and they're open as to how old they may ultimately prove to be. The investigation needs to be done. But what's fascinating about them is this very powerful geometry and astronomy. So a number of the sites are perfectly aligned to true north, true south, true east, and true west. I'm not talking about magnetic north. I'm talking about true astronomical north. To do that, there's only one way to do it, and that's with astronomy. So that tells us that astronomers were at work in the Amazon. The geometry is very complex and very precise. That tells us that people with geometrical skills were at work in the Amazon. And thirdly, the scale of the sites of hundreds of meters, gigantic earthworks on the scale of hundreds of meters, tells us that this was highly organized project that was undertaken on a very large scale by very large numbers of people. It's a wonderful mystery, and it deserves much further attention. And that's Jacosá, exactly, the squares, squaring the circles. So you can see the outside embankment, and then inside it is the square ditch, and then there's another embankment inside that, and a circle inside that.
It's crazy that they made a road right through that. What assholes.
Modern road, yeah, because there's no respect for the ancient world, unfortunately.
And there's another one. Look at that! Wow, that's incredible.
So there are thousands of these things.
How they found the stuff that they found in the Amazon? What imaging technology were they using to find all this?
Initially, it was entirely found because areas of the rainforest had been cleared. Economic interests said, we want to make a cattle ranch here, or we want to make a soybean farm here, so we're just going to clear the rainforest. In the process of clearing the rainforest, they start discovering these earthworks that had previously been completely overgrown by the jungle. Then the next step was to say, What could we do to find out more about this? Obviously, they don't want to destroy more jungle, and luckily we have a technology which is LiDAR, as I mentioned, which uses radar. And using LiDAR, they've been able to identify many more of these sites, and then to get to the sites without destroying the jungle, and to begin excavations on them, and to find that they go back, in the cases of the ones that have been explored so far, at least 3,000 years. This is an intriguing development, completely unexplained in our understanding of the Amazon. And what it suggests is a heritage of extremely ancient knowledge. You don't wake up one morning and create a perfectly geometrical square or circular earthwork that's perfectly aligned to true north, south, east, and west on an enormous scale. There has to be a background to that. There has to be a reason for doing it. And the evidence is none of these sites were lived in. There's no habitation refuse found in them whatsoever. We don't know what they were used for. I make the case in America before that they're connected to a system of ideas which is found all around the world, which is to do with death and the afterlife destiny of the soul.